Hello everyone, my name is Qifei He. So it's my great honor today and to give the presentation. So you see the presentation name is related to the tracking response pattern change in PIAAC literacy and numeracy domains. And it's a kind of comparative analysis of process data from 2 cycles. I try my best to be fast and to introduce what we have. And so this is a collaboration with Yiming Chen, that is one of my students, and Gao Cates, and also Elizabeth Teich is sitting in the audience. So let's start. So in the PIAAC, that is kind of a decade trajectory between 10 years. So it's quite interesting actually for the PIAAC as a digital pioneer because we have from computer-based testing in 2012 in cycle 1 to the tablet-based platforms in 2022 cycle. And the second thing is because it's a decade of transformation. So you can see not only our skills actually will have this kind of a change, but at the same time, their behavior also have a kind of change to see how the people actually answer the questions and how they show their behavior. And third one is understanding the drivers. So because we want to understand to say what the factors behind the skill growth or decline, and identifying which demographic groups experience the most significant changes. So you can see in the table actually beside here, this part, actually if we compare with 2 cycles, we can see sometimes the literacy change and numeracy change. So their score actually will be changed and to see what is happening for this kind of country. So I have to say, because this study is a kind of preliminary study, so there are also some part actually, I would appreciate your feedback and also comments like that. So objective of this study is we want to analyze the behavior shifts across the cycles. And especially when we want to compare between the 2 cycles, the most important things, we need to find some common things together. So the trend items is the most important thing for us actually to make the comparison. That means we use identical items in cycle 1 and cycle 2, and to see what kind of behavior changes on these trend items. And second thing is we want to compare behavior patterns by skill levels. So examine whether individuals vary levels of literacy or numeracy exhibit similar behavior patterns when solving the assessment tasks. And the last one is identify the demographic skill shifts. And we try to pinpoint some significant change in skill levels across demographic groups to better understand where the growth or decline has occurred or inform some targeted interventions. So actually that gives us 2 sub-studies for this whole picture. The first study will focus on the first 2 objectives. So it's a kind of sub-study 1. We utilize process indicators to understand the behavior changes. And the second part actually we come in to apply a differential item functioning to identify the ability changes. Especially we want to focus on to see which group actually will get this kind of change. So if time allows, we will come into the study 2 more, but actually if we do not have enough time, so we will focus on sub-study 1. So in the sub-study 1, so process data is generally conceptualized within a 2-tiered framework. So the low-level features, so that's basically coming from the raw sequential data, such as timestamp, the keystrokes, and mouse clicks, and navigation path. And another one is a higher order process indicators. So basically we have the abstract behavior indicators aggregated to metrics, such as total response time, number of actions. So basically from PIAAC now release the data. So we have already got the higher order process indicators. And we're eager to get for the low-level process indicator as well. But you can see in the cycle 1, we have the low-level process features and the high-order process indicators. So that helps us a lot actually to do both of the levels. But currently, for this study, we can only focus on the higher-order process indicators. But because Claudia is here, so we're eager to have this kind of low-level process features as well. So in this study, actually, we focus on 6 countries. We have Spain, Italy, UK, US, Finland, and Japan, because we try to get a kind of general picture about the countries that relatively not that high level into the literacy and or numeracy, and in the middle, and also Finland and Japan actually ranks the highest one. So in the sample, we can see in the literacy, we have in the cycle 1, because we need to focus on the ALDOS routed to the trend items only. So you can see in the cycle 1, we have 23,517 adults routed to the trend item cycle 1, and we have 24,846 adults routed to trend item cycle 2. And ICT home and work, we make the comparison, and we can see there's a relatively significant increase by 2%, and ICT work is by 3%. Numeracy is a similar patterns over there. And for the trend items, so we have altogether 28 trend items in literacy and also 32 trend items in numeracy. It's interesting, actually, I highlight over here because they have a different difficulty levels, because the difficulty levels actually will help us to find some behavior patterns later. So we can see in the easy item, we define them as to say if the difficulty level is smaller than 225, so we have 2 items. Medium, we have 22 items. The hard items, we have 4. In the numeracy, a little bit different, and so we can see in the easy item, we have 6 items. Medium, we have 24, and hard item, we have 2. And then we do the data analysis. Basically, we focus on this kind of high-level indicators: total response time, time for the first action, and also number of actions. And basically, what we do is a cycle 2 minus cycle 1 per item, especially by country and also by average. So interesting to find like this. From the literacy behavior patterns, we got the first one is the total response time per item, to say if we give these trend items to people from these 6 countries, and average speaking, they will have shorten their time by 5.9 seconds for each item. So that means each item, they will shorten by 5.9. And time for the first action, it is people actually react quicker, much quicker than before. So we can see that is 6.9 seconds if we cross all the countries by all the items there. So we can have cycle 1 to cycle 2 actually is lower down. And also the number of actions, that is 1.7 actions up. So that means actually people will generally use a little bit longer sequence when they solve the items for these trend items, even though the trend items actually basically do not have quite a lot of this kind of interaction, but you can see people will be more easily to make a change. For example, they will change their answers, and also showing up like they have a relatively little longer sequence. And also taking consideration about, because in the first cycle, we have computer-based assessment, but in the second one, we have tablet-based. Because when a tablet-based, there will be people will be quicker to use tablets and just click on them. So it's a kind of a multi-fact insight, but that will be good also to see this kind of pattern out. And just now I mentioned to say, because we have this kind of a different difficulty level of that. So memorize these figures, and then we will come inside to that. And because if we come into this kind of a difficulty level and we see the patterns a little bit different. And the first one, when we come into the response time, so we can see actually for the easy item, even though we only have 2 items over here, but you can see actually for majority country, actually they do not change. But for the two countries, actually they relatively higher. For example, we have Japan and Finland. So you can see actually Japan and Finland actually take longer time than before, because they actually, we check only 2 items there, so there's 1 item especially, and people will stuck over there because they will think about this kind of wording, whether they can understand more. So they spend longer time here. And for the medium items, actually it is the countries who relatively have lower lower skill countries, actually they will spend a longer time compared with the countries with higher performance. But for the hard items, actually you can see generally all the country and all the people actually spend a shorter time. So because 0 is kind of a line, and you can see if you have a negative ones, the gap actually show this kind of a longer time. Shorter time. So for example, like to say in Finland for the final hard questions, they will save 10.51 seconds than before in the second one. And I just give us example to say, because for the total response time, actually we can even go deeper and to see by each country and by each their also by each level. For example, we have below level 1 until level 6. So you can see actually the pattern showing difference by each country. So for example, this is Spain and Italy, so you can see people generally, all the levels become so quicker because cycle 1 is higher and cycle 2 is lower, so you can see actually all this kind of trend going down. But for the Finland and Japan, actually for all the groups, almost they were using longer time, especially for Japan for the higher group, so that means it's the level 5. Below level, that is level 5, and then this is below level 1. Actually, people will spend a longer time, much longer time than before. And also, this is a medium item, so if we go inside that to see all the countries actually going down. But for the final 2 countries, actually, they were showing a little bit different pattern from the others. And the last one is for the hard items. Actually, if we go inside to see different countries, actually this time the hard items, actually all the groups by all the different levels coming down. So I'll be quicker. So for this one is actually for the time for the first action. So you can see actually for also for the easy item, actually there's not big change. And also for the high level performance countries, they do not change quite a lot. But for the other part for the medium and also the hard items, actually you can see they actually react much quicker than before. And so this one is showing for the number of actions. So number of actions for the easy items and the medium items, people would generally use longer sequence. But for the hard items, actually that is not that much compared with the first 2 level of the items. We do the similar things for numeracy, but numeracy actually will showing a little bit different pattern than the literacy. For example, like in the numeracy, even though we still find a similar trend to say they are going down for when they use the total response time and time for the first action, and also they will use a longer sequence when they solve the items. But if we go inside for different item difficulties, so you can see for the easy items, actually people do not use shorter time, but actually they will spend longer compared with the medium and the hard items. And this one is for the number of actions. So that is even more obvious to see easy and medium items, they will use longer sequences compared with the hard items. So I quickly give a summary for this one. So because you can see the response time for that first action got faster in cycle 2 compared with in cycle 1 in general, but actually when we come into this kind of different item difficulty levels, we still find there's different things. And also the behavior changes relatively less in numeracy items compared with the literacy items. I'll quickly come into the second item, but I don't think I have enough time, but so I will quickly come into the most important findings there. So you can see in the differential item function, actually that is identified items that show imbalanced probability of correctness given by the same latent ability range. So for example, if one item related to football games, like to say, might be favorable for male, meaning that's given by the same latent ability levels, male might have a higher probability to answer it correctly compared with female. So we apply these methods into the trend items to identify whether the item might have some bias on the response in 2 cycles. So if the diff is detected on item, it would suggest respondents in different cycles might have systematically favor on the certain item. That showed a significant difference among the group by cycles. So we did analysis for the gender, so female and male, because in the female, within literacy, actually we have a diff. Remember that we have 28 literacy items in the trend, but we find the 19 items have significant diff between these 2 cycles. So that means actually female change more than male during these 10 years. Because you can see in the male, we have significant diff items. It's only 12 items compared with the female. And we also do this kind of diff analysis for different age groups. So you can see actually for this one actually is compared for 2012 cycle in 24 years old, 25 to 34 years old, and also currently they have 24 and 35 years old. So you can see actually for this one, we can see the pattern is interesting to find, for example, in the lower, younger group, actually for the higher group, meaning to say here, this part actually, they will have higher probability compared with the cycle 1. And most interesting one actually coming here, I know, yeah. So you can see this kind of diff related to age cohort. Why I call this cohort? Because people in 2012, they are in the 24 years old. Now they are coming to 30, 34, 35 that years old. So it's a kind of cohort, they're growing up, right? So we want to see whether growing up during this kind of time period, whether they earn something or they learn something. But actually it's an interesting find to say, for this younger group, and we always favor, even though we find 3 questions significant here, so that means that generally they do not have any change. Even though we have some change over here, and they still favor about cycle 1. So that means the people actually for the younger group, they do not learn anything, or even they are a little bit behind compared with 10 years ago. And things changed, and for this group is 25 to 34 years old, coming here is 35 to 44 years old, but you can see actually they change more compared with the first time group. And also continue on for the older groups, to say in older groups actually, they earn something, they learn something if they do not have any change, if they have change. So we can see actually the items more favor for the 55 years older or the 45 to 55 years, because the black line is more favorable compared with the first cycle. So actually that will be interesting to say, for within this past 10 years, actually, we find this kind of differences, and especially for the younger people, and show this kind of worry, because they do not really learn things, actually, from this kind of pattern showing out. And older group do not change too much either, but the diff items show the favorable patterns to the cycle too. Okay, thank you so much for that, but in the future study, we will do some differential item time functioning also for the time usage by latent ability group, but in the future. Thank you so much.